Good day, everyone. I'm Daniel H. Bersede, and I will be serving as your moderator for today's presentation in our subject, Advanced Statistics. Today's session will focus on selected non-parametric test and regression techniques, which are widely used in research when data do not meet the assumptions required for parametric procedures and when researchers aim to examine relationships among variables using statistical model. We will begin with the Wilcoxon test, a non-parametric alternative to the paired t-test, commonly used to compare two related samples or repeated measurements when normality cannot be assumed. This will be followed by the Mann-Whitney U-test, which is used to determine whether there is significant difference between two independent groups, serving as a non-parametric counterpart of the independent sample t-test. The session will then transition to regression analysis, starting with simple linear regression, which examines the relationship between one independent variable and one dependent variables and allow researcher to make prediction based on this relationship. This will be expanded through multiple linear regression where two or more independent variables are used simultaneously to explain or predict a single outcome variable, providing a more comprehensive analytical approach. Lastly, we will discuss the Friedman test, a non-parametric alternative to repeated measures ANOVA, which is used to detect differences across multiple related samples or conditions when parametric assumptions are not met. Each statistical method will be presented with clear explanation and practical examples to help us understand their purpose, appropriate application, and relevance in research settings, particularly in the field of health and education. Again, I am Daniel H. Bersede, a registered medtech with a Master of Science in Medical Technology, who is currently serving as a faculty member and year-level coordinator in the Department of Medical Technology at Far Eastern University. I earned my Bachelor of Science in Medical Technology from Our Lady of Fatima University and my master's degree at Philippine Women's University. I have published peer-reviewed research focusing on the antimicrobial properties of natural products, bacterial staining techniques, bioactive compound in medical laboratory science, and currently doing intensive research in leptospirosis and other public health studies. To begin our session, our first presenter will discuss the Wilcoxon test. Please welcome Ms. Sherlyn Joy P. Isip. Ms. Isip is a registered medical technologist who earned her Bachelor of Science in Medical Technology from Our Lady of Fatima University and her Master of Science in Medical Technology from Philippine Women's University. She currently serves as the program head of the College of Medical Laboratory Science at the Valenzuela campus, where she actively promotes academic excellence and quality instruction in medical laboratory education. Let us all listen as Ms. Isip presents the Wilcoxon test.
So, good day to each and everyone. And for today's discussion, we will talk about the Wilcoxon side rank test, simply known as the Wilcoxon test. So, the Wilcoxon side rank test is a simpler, more flexible alternative to the paired t-test when the data isn't normally distributed. So, this test is especially useful for ranked or ordinal data, and it provides an excellent alternative for analyzing repeated measures or paired observations without requiring a normal distribution. So the goal of the test is to determine if two or more sets of pairs of data are different from one another in a statistically significant manner. So simply, the Wilcoxon signed rank test will test whether there is a difference between two dependent samples or between two paired samples. So it is a non-parametric counterpart to the t-test for dependent samples. So we can use the Wilcoxon sign rank test when we are checking the significant differences for paired or related samples, or if we have same subjects that are measured twice. So for example, we are getting the before and after values or the pre and post values. So the types of questions that the Wilcoxon test can help answer include the following. So are the test scores different from 5th grade to 6th grade for the same students? Does a particular drug affect the health tested on the same individuals? And do patients' blood pressure readings decrease after taking a new medication? So to further understand the Wilcoxon sign rank test, let us have a sample problem. So a researcher wants to know if a review program changes the exam scores. So the score of each students before and after the review are recorded. So using a 5% level of significance, test whether there is a significant difference. So first, we have to formulate our null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. So for the null hypothesis, there is no significant difference in scores before and after the review program. And for the alternative hypothesis, there is a significant difference in the scores before and after the review program. So take note that since the test doesn't rely on averages, the hypotheses are about the center or median and not the means. So for our first step, we have to compute the differences of the after and before scores. So the first step in the Wilcoxon sign rank test is to calculate how much each after measurement differs from the before measurement. So this difference will show whether our measurements are increased, decreased, or stayed the same after the intervention. So if a pair has no difference, it does not contribute to the ranking process. So for example, kung zero yung difference na nakuha po natin, the zeros are excluded from the ranking. So these are excluded because they provide no information about the direction of the change. So simply, in this step, we would subtract the before scores from the after scores. So for student A, we have positive 5. And then for student B, we have positive 5 as well as for student C. And then for student D, positive 3. For student E is negative 2. For student F is positive 4. For student G is positive 2. And for student H is positive 4. So again, simply in this step, we would subtract the before scores from the after scores. So after getting the values is that we have to rank the absolute value of the differences. So when we say absolute value, tatanggalin lang po natin yung positive and negative sign. And then when we get the absolute values is that we're going to rank them. So, take note that if there are ties doon po sa ating mga absolute values is that we have to average the ranks for the tied values. So, in our given, the ranking would be from the smallest to largest. And the smallest value here is 2. So, ang rank po niya is 1.5 and 1.5 since meron po tayong dalawang 2. And then 3 is rank 3. 4. So, meron po tayong dalawang 4 which would give 4.5 and 4.5 rank. And yung natitirang tatlong 5 po would be rank 7. And then on the next step, we will reintroduce the signs, positive and negative to the rank. So, ibabalik lang po natin yung mga ranks o yung signs sa mga ranks. And then the next step would be get the sum of the ranks. So for W positive, we should get the sum of all the positive ranks. And for W negative is that we're going to get the sum of the negative ranks. So with our given value, the positive ranks are the following. So we have 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 3 plus 4.5 plus 1.5 plus 4.5, which will give a total of 34.5. And then, isa lang naman po yung negative natin na rank, which is 1.5. And after that, we're going to get the test statistic or yung value po ng W. So the value of the W is the smaller of W positive or W negative. Simply, kukuhanin lang po natin yung mas smaller doon sa sum of positive ranks and sum of negative ranks na na-compute po natin. So in this value, mas mababa po yung W negative and it would be our W. So 1.5. And then after that, we're going to compare it with the table value. So just like with t-test, meron din po tayong ginagamit na specific na table or critical values table for the Wilcoxon signed rank test. So we have to determine the n, which is the number of samples. So our n is 8. And then it is a two-tailed test since we are looking for the difference, and our level of significance is 0.05, which will give us the critical value of 4. And then yung 4 po, siya na po yung i-compare natin with our computed value, that is 1.5. So for the decision in the Wilcoxon signed rank test is that simple comparison lang po siya, wherein we're going to compare yung W natin with the critical value. So if the W is less than or equal to the critical value, we have to reject the null hypothesis. And if the W is greater than the critical value, is that we have to accept the null hypothesis. So in our given problem, our W is 1.5 and it is less than the critical value of 4, which will have uh, a decision to reject the null hypothesis. So it means that the null hypothesis that states that there is no significant difference in the scores before and after the review program is false. And then we're going to accept the alternative hypothesis, which states that there is a significant difference in the scores before and after the review program. So for our interpretation and conclusion, so since the computed test statistic W is 1.5 and it is less than the critical value of 4 at 5% level of significance, we must reject the null hypothesis. So therefore, this indicates that there is a significant difference between the before and after scores. So for the conclusion, there is a significant difference between the scores before and after the review program, and there is a statistically significant change in the students' exam scores after the review program. So that would be all for my discussion. Thank you so much for listening.
Our next presenter will be discussing the Mann-Whitney U test. Please welcome Ms. Ruweni Cynthia T. Non. Ms. Non is a registered medical technologist who completed her bachelor's degree at Notre Dame of Marbelle University in Coronadal City and earned her Master of Science in Medical Technology from Philippine Women's University, Manila. She is currently affiliated with Sultan Kudarat State University College of Medicine under the Medical Technology Department. Let us give our full attention as Ms. Non presents the Mann-Whitney U test.
Hello everyone. I am going to talk about a statistical tool called the Mann-Whitney U test. So we're going to explore what it is, why it's different from the more common t-test, and we're going to walk through one practical example to see exactly how it works. So here is what we're going to cover. So we're going to start with the basics of what this test is and where it fits, specifically the difference between parametric and non-parametric tests. Then we'll go over when we're going to use this test, the logic on how it calculates results, and then we're going to have a sample problem where I'm going to walk through the solution step by step. Um, and then after, we're going to finish with some key takeaways. So what exactly is this test? So what is the Mann-Whitney U-test? So at its core, the Mann-Whitney U-test is a statistical method used to determine if there's a significant difference between two independent groups. You might hear it called by other names like the Mann-Whitney-Wilcoxon test or the Wilcoxon-Rank-Sum test. A key point to remember is that, unlike a t-test, which compares the means or averages of two groups, the Mann-Whitney U-test compares the medians. More precisely, it compares the ranks of the data. Instead of looking at the raw scores, we convert them into an ordered position, which makes the test very flexible. So, again, Mann-Whitney U-test checks for rank sum difference between two independent samples. So we can somehow say that it is a non-parametric counterpart to the t-test. And to understand why we might choose this test, so let's look at the comparison. So we have the parametric tests. So example is your independent t-test. So these are powerful tests, but somehow they come with strings attached. Paano? They require data to be continuous and most importantly, to follow a normal bell-shaped distribution. On the right, we have non-parametric tests where the Mann-Whitney U lives or nandyan siya. So these tests don't assume a normal distribution. They can work with ordinal data. For example, like yung survey responses natin on a scale of strongly agree to strongly disagree. And they compare medians rather than means. And because they make fewer assumptions, they're considered more robust, especially when your data doesn't fit the perfect shape required by parametric tests. However, this robustness comes with a slight trade-off. If your data does meet the assumptions of a t-test, so the t-test is generally more powerful, meaning it's better at detecting a difference if a difference truly exists. So now, even though our man with the U test is non-parametric, the man with the U test does have some assumptions. It's not assumption free. First, we need independent observations. That means each data point is from a unique subject. And the two groups should be independent of each other. So independent groups, like a control group and a treatment group, but not the same group measured before and after. Dapat independent groups. Next, our data should be at least ordinal. Um, so that we could rank it. Things like test scores, reaction time, satisfaction levels. And there's a nuance. If we want to interpret the test strictly as a comparison of medians, the shapes of the distribution for both groups should be similar. If the shapes are very different, the test is still valid, but we interpret it more cautiously as a test of stochastic equality. Stochastic equality, basically, that a random selected value from one group is just as likely to be larger than one from a different or from another group. So, when are we going to use the Mann-Whitney U test? So, when should we use this? So, here are some common scenarios. First, we use it when the normality assumption is violated. So if your data is skewed or has extreme outliers, or a Shapiro-Wilk test, which is a test used to determine if a sample of data comes from a normally distributed population, if the Shapiro-Wilk test says no to normality, so your Mann-Whitney U test is your go-to. It's also excellent for small sample sizes because if you have um, fewer than 20 in a group, it's very hard to confirm normality. So the Mann-Whitney U test is a safer bet. If your data is inherently ordinal, like those Likert scale questions from a survey, this test can be used. And finally, if you are genuinely interested in the typical value, which is the median, rather than the average, because the average can be pulled around by outliers, then the Mann-Whitney U test is the appropriate choice. So let's talk about the magic behind the test. So it's all about the ranking. So the process is simple in concept. So we take all data from both groups and we throw it into, for example, one big pool. Then, if it's in one group na, we line it all up from the smallest value to the largest and assign ranks. The smallest number gets a rank of 1, then the next gets a 2, and so on and so forth. After we've ranked everything, we separate the ranks back into their original groups and then sum them up. So we get a rank sum for group A and one for group B. Then we calculate the U statistic, which essentially tells us how much these rank sums overlap. The key insight is this: if the two groups are very similar, their ranks will be intermingled and the rank sums will be roughly equal. But if one group has systematically higher scores, its ranks will be clustered at the high end, leading to a very small U for the other group. So we use the smaller of the two U values to test for significance. So let's have the sample problem. So we're going to bring to life uh, the Mann Whitney U test in this very simple sample problem. So imagine a researcher wants to see if a new teaching method is more effective than the standard one. So they take two independent groups of students. One group gets the standard method, the other gets the new method. At the end, they all take the same exam. So here are the scores. So we have, for the standard method, we have 5 scores: 78, 85, 82, 88, 75. For the new method, we have 6 scores. We have 92, 89, 95, 85, 91, and 90. So the question is there a statistically significant difference between these two groups? So we're going to use an alpha of 0.05, which is a standard threshold for significance. All right. So first step is to state our hypotheses. So every hypothesis test starts with, of course, stating our assumptions. So our null hypothesis is that there's no difference between the two teaching methods. In other words, the median of the standard method is equal to the median of the new method. And then our alternative hypothesis is that there is a difference. So the medians are not equal. And because we're not specifying which one is higher, so our test is a two-tailed test. Alright, so next step natin is to combine and rank the data. So here na table na po natin. So at the left column, we have all the 11 scores from both groups, Group A and Group B. I already sorted it from lowest to highest. So the lowest score for both groups is 75, and so it gets a rank of 1. Next score is 78, so of course it gets a rank of 2. Next is 82, so it gets a rank of 3. And now notice na sa 85, it appears twice. Once in group A and another one in group B. So to handle tying, if there are ties, we take the ranks that they would have occupied for this four ranks 4 and 5, and then we give them the average, which is 4.5. So dalawa silang 4.5. And then we continue the process for all scores until the highest score, 95, which is the final rank na 11. Kasi may 11 tayo. 5 for the first group and then 6 for the second group. So next step natin, once we have all the ranks, we put them back to their original groups. So for sa group A natin, yung standard method, so we have ang scores na 75, 78, 82, 85, 88. So these are the ranks 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and 6. So we're going to sum up the ranks, add up the ranks natin. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4.5 plus 6. The sum of ranks for group A is 16.5. Okay? For the new method or group B natin, yung scores doon is 85, 89, 90, 91, 92, 95, which are ranks 4.5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So, we're going to we're going to add or sum up the ranks. So we have 4.5 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11, and that is 49.5. Okay, so to check, quick check, so the total of all ranks from rank 1 to 11, pag i-add natin lahat ng ranks, that should be 66. So if we add the sum rank of group A and the sum rank of the group B natin, dapat mag-equal siya ng 66. So we have 16.5 plus 49.5, so 66. So we've ranked correctly. So next natin, we have to calculate na the U statistic. So we have two formulas, one for U1 and one for U2. So the U statistic or the U for group 1, okay, and the U for group 2. So we have the formula. So we have um, U is equal to R minus N multiplied by N plus 1 divided by 2, where yung N natin is the sample size and R is the rank sum. So for first natin, the U for group A, so the R is 16.5. Okay? And then yung N natin is 5. So we have here 16.5 minus 5, tapos 5 plus 1, so 6. And then divided by 2. So we have 16.5 minus 30 divided by 2. So 16.5 minus 15. So 1.5. So sa group 2 naman natin, U2 natin, the rank sum is 49.5. And then the N or the sample size natin is 6. So 49.5 minus, we have 6 times 6 plus 1, which is 7 divided by 2, is equal to 49.5 minus 42 divided by 2. So 49.5 minus 21 is equal to 28.5. So again, I've mentioned earlier that the U statistic is the smaller of the two U's. So we're going to use 1.5. So next natin, we have to determine the critical value. So to decide if our U na calculated kanina na 1.5 is significant, we need to compare it to a critical value from the Mann-Whitney U table. So this is the Mann-Whitney U table ng alpha 0.05 for two-tailed from this particular source. So, take note natin again, ang sample sizes natin. For group 1, we have 5. For group 2, we have 6. And our alpha is 0.05 two-tailed. So, yan siya. So, we're going to consult the Mann-Whitney U critical values table. So, we have here N1 this side and 2 in this side. So, N1 natin is 5. So, and then, ang N2 natin is 6. So, ang value natin would be, ang U critical natin would be, yung intersection nila, which is the 3. So, ang U critical natin is 3. So, next step is to make a decision. So, the decision rule is simple. So, we reject the null hypothesis if our calculated U is less than or equal to the critical na U natin. Alright, so we have the calculated U, which is 1.5, and our U na critical is 3. So, is 1.5 less than or equal to our critical U? Yes. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis. So, next step natin is to interpret the results. So, kanina na-solve na natin. So, meron na tayong decision. So, what does this tell us? So, our decision tells us that there is a statistically significant difference in exam scores between the two teaching methods. The scores from the new method group are systematically higher than those from the standard method group. Looking at the medians reinforces this. So the new method had a median of 90.5 compared to the median of the standard method, which is 82. So this gives us a strong evidence that the new teaching method is more effective. So, reporting of results natin. So, we have, pag mag-write up ng findings, so, meron tayong somehow standard format uh, when we report this particular result. So, example, um, a Mann-Whitney U test was conducted to evaluate the difference in final exam scores between students taught with the standard method and those taught with a new method. The results indicated a statistically significant difference where the calculated U is 1.5 at P less than 0.05. The new teaching method yielded significantly higher exam scores than the standard method. Um, Notice that in the reporting, we include the use statistic, the sample sizes in narratives, and the p-value. So it would give you a summary of all the essential information. So last, we have our key takeaways. So before we wrap up, i-review natin siya. So first, the Mann-Whitney U is the go-to non-parametric alternative to the independent t-test. So we use it when our data is not normal. Second, the test is based on ranking all the data together and comparing the sum of those ranks between groups. Third, the U statistic itself is the smaller of two calculated values. A small u relative to the critical value indicates a significant difference. And finally, it's a robust, flexible test that's incredibly useful across many fields. So, for example, research, psychology, medicine, business, etc. All right, so thank you for listening.
Moving on to regression analysis, our third presenter will discuss simple linear regression. Please welcome Ms. Richelle C. Pacoy. Ms. Pacoy is a faculty member and the designated campus nurse at the University of Southeastern Philippines, where she combines her expertise in education and healthcare to support the well-being and academic success of the students. Let us now listen as Ms. Pacoy presents simple linear regression.
Hi everyone, so in this video, we're talking about the simple linear regression. In this statistic lesson, you can learn the concept of simple linear regression. What is simple linear regression? So simple linear regression, this is a method of studying the relationship between the two quantitative variables, where one variable is used to predict the other. The independent variable is the predictor and the dependent variable is the outcome we want to estimate. So the method that fits a straight line through the data to capture the average trend. So in practice, so we use it when a scatter plot suggests a roughly linear pattern and when a single predictor is sufficient to the question. So when this linear regression will be used, so I have mentioned, it is when both variables are quantitative. So when the relationship is roughly linear in a scatter plot, and when the goal is explanation or the prediction using one predictor only. So for example, the study hours, and magkano yung how much is the score na nakuha mo, the temperature, then the electricity use, or the height and weight. So simple linear regression is a method, I have mentioned earlier, is a method to understand the relationship between the two variables. You can infer or predict a variable based on another variables. For example, you can predict the annual salary of a person based on the years of experience. So as a simple linear, it can help us to understand how salary changes with an increase in years of experience. The variable we want to infer or predict is called the dependent variable, while the variable that we use for prediction is called the independent variable. So let's look at example. We want to predict the house price. So the dependent variable is the one we want to predict. No, of course, in this scenario is the price, the price of the house. While the independent variable is the one we use to make the prediction could be the size of the house in a square feet. So, pwede ka namang gumamit, you can use more than one independent variable. For example, the construction, or the features of the house, like ang bahay ba is merong swimming pool, how many bathrooms in the house, sa isang bahay, and how many, what are the house size, But in this case, this is the multiple linear regression already. So, I'm not going to discuss about the linear regression. So we'll just focus on the simple linear regression. So how do we calculate? How do we calculate the simple linear regression? Of course, first we should have the data we need. So we collect the information from 10 houses, including the sizes in the square feet and the price that they were sold. So now, pwede natin itong gamitin ang data na to calculate our regression model. So this one, so y is the dependent variable. This is the house price, while the x is the independent variable. This is the house size. And we want to use this data to determine the coefficient b and a. So the basic simple linear equation is y hat equals to a plus the b times x. So y hat, this is the predicted value, not the observed value. The intercept a is the model's estimated value of y when x is 0. The slope b tells us how y expected to change on average. So when x increases by 1 unit, so the slope often the most important because it gives the direction and the size of the relationship. So a scatter plot is usually the first visual step in simple linear regression. So every point in this case with an x value and y value. So if the points tend to follow a straight line patterns, then it fitting the regression lines that makes sense. So the line does not need to pass through in every point. Rather, it summarizes the average trend. So the more tightly the points cluster around the line, so the stronger the linear relationship and the better prediction tends to be. So let's visualize our data using the scatter plot. So on x-axis, we plot the independent variable, the house size, and the y-axis is we plot the dependent variable, which is the house price. So each point there is one house, one house with respective house size and house price. So we want to summarize the data using a simple linear regression. To do this, so we draw a straight line, through the points, on the scatter plot, but the draw line isn't just any random line. So it's the line that tries to minimize. So in this, it tries to minimize the error. This one, minimize the error or the distance. This is the distance between the actual data points and the line itself. So if we add up the length of all the red lines, we get that total error. So our goal is to find the regression that minimizes this error. But how are we going to calculate this line? So this is where the equation of linear regression comes into play. So not every point point lies exactly on the regression line. The vertical gap between an observed point and the line is called the residual. This one, which can be thought as a prediction error. The least squares method chooses the line that minimizes the sum of the squared residuals. And the least squared method chooses the line that minimizes the sum of the square residuals. So we square the residual so that the negative and the positive errors do not cancel each other, and to give more weight no, on the larger error. So this is the mathematical reason. No? The fitted line is often called the line of best fit. So, sa equation na ito, no b-slope of the line, di ba? So, the slope shows how much the price changes. So, if the house no increases no by 1 square foot, so A is the y-intercept, no, telling us where the line crosses the y-axis. So, for example, so if the house, no, if we have a house, no, with a size of 0, no, so the model will predict a house price of an A. So for of course, di ba? The house of predicting the price of a house with 0 cents, no, doesn't make any sense, no. So let's look no at this example. So in this case, our intercept no is 100. So our answer for A is 100, but this one, our A is 100. But how we read the slope? No, so for this, we take one step, no, 1 unit step, di ba? So step in the independent variable. So for example, no, this one, if we move no from 1 to 2, no, then we observe how much the dependent variable changes with 1 unit increase. So in this case, for example, in this case, if the independent variable increases by 1, no, if the independent variable increases into 1 unit, no, so the dependent no variable also increases by 50 units. This one, so our B is 50. So paano natin i-calculate, no? So paano natin i-calculate ang B and A? So there are 3 ways, no? There are 3 ways on how to calculate on how to calculate. We have by hand, we have by software, and we have the Excel. Now, at this point, ipapakita ko sa inyo kung paano natin i-calculate yung data using the Excel. So make sure that your Excel, no, meron siyang data analysis, di ba? If wala, you need to go to the toolbox. So I will not discuss it because last meeting, sinabi na ni Sir on how to put the data analysis. So of course, we open the Excel data, no? Of course, though. So in computing no, the linear regression, this one, so we will click the data analysis, no? Then look for the regression, then okay. No, then ito, so input natin yung erase muna natin to. Okay. So input muna, erase natin, delete ko muna to. Okay. So input muna natin yung yung y natin, yung 1 range. So this one is our y here is the house price. Just click this one. Then after our x, no, x range will be our house size. So yun. So don't forget not to click the labels, no? Then our confidence level. Then after, we need to choose kung saan natin ilalagay yung output natin. So for here, ito yung dito ko ilalagay yung output, then click the OK. So this is our ito yung output, no? The output or the regression or the coefficient natin. Okay, so this we will go back to the formula, no? We will go back to the formula, no, of our this is the answer of letter B. So our formula of the equation of the regression is y equals b x plus a. So since no, we calculated already our b, no, the intercept. So which is our b is the house size. So this one. So ito yung the result, no, of our coefficient b. So 100, no, 108, no, 0.35 based doon sa calculation natin using the Excel, no, Excel. So once we calculated the B, no, so we find, no, we find the intercept, no, so using this formula, diba? So A, no, so this one, the y bar, no, the y bar, this is the mean of the house price. So, I know, no, I will not discuss this anymore on paano kukunin yung mean, na kasi na-discuss nito ni Sir last meeting. So, this one, no, which means, no, this is a y bar, no, it means the mean of the house price, which is the mean is 267,200, no. So then after our B is the 108.35 based on the na-calculate natin sa previous sa those using the Excel. So B, no, B is the slope, no, which calculated, no, and the X bar, no, is the mean, no, the mean of the house sizes substituting these values, no. So if we're going to substitute it, so the A, no, the A is the intercept A comes out to be the 60,919, no, based on this one. Diba? 6,000, this is the intercept, no? Okay, then this is our B. So, this is the output. This is our, the A is the 60,919.44, no? I-read natin to. Okay, this one, no? Then, our X, no, our X is the mean, diba, of the house price. So this is the 1,903.9. So based, no, so based on this data, we have now calculated the coefficient B and the coefficient A, diba? So if we insert, no, the numbers for B and A, we get this equation. No, why? No, this is our B, no, it's X plus our A, this one, diba? So we get this equation. Okay, so if we enter, no, the 0 for X, no, for this one for X, no, the house size, we get this one, no. If we if the 0 if we enter the 0, no, for X in the house, no, we get this, no. So in short, no, so if we enter the 0, so Y equals, this is our B, then X, no, plus our A, no, equals this one, no. So we get the 60,919.44. So which is our intercept, no, which is, this is our the intercept, diba? So if we increase, no, the house, no, if we increase the house size by 1, no, square foot, no, in each item, no, we get, no, a house price of the 108, no, 108.3, no, 0.3, and this is our X. So the answer will be the 60,919, no. So this is the price if we add, no, square 1 square foot at a time, diba? So in this table, diba, so this is the table, diba? So in our table, diba, in this table, no, we can see the calculated regression coefficient. So we have the intercept A, no, we have the intercept and the house size, no. In this result of the linear regression, you can see the p-value, no, this one. So what does the p-value tells us, no? So the p-value, no, the p-value, no, it helps, no, to determine the relationship between the independent variable, no, independent variable and the dependent variable is statistically significant, no, to test, no, whether the relationship, no, we observe, no, are meaningful or just due to a random of chance. So we start by, of course, our null hypothesis, no. So our null hypothesis is there is no relationship, no, between the independent variable and the dependent variable. So if, no, if our p-value, no, is less than, no, or smaller than the 0.05, no, we reject the null hypothesis. So it means this is a suggesting, no, a significant relationship for the variables. But if the p-value is larger or greater than, no, greater than 0.05, no, we fail to reject the hypothesis, so indicating, no, that the observed data may be occurred by chance, no, with no strong evidence of relationship, no. So since, no, in our data, no, nga na-calculate earlier, our p-value is our p-value is highly significant, no, because this is, asa man siya, greater or less than, it is less than the 0.05. So it means we reject the null hypothesis, no. So between, no, so indicating, no, the strong, no, indicating the strong relationship between the house price and the house size. So in this example, no, it is very obvious, no, that the bigger house size typically mas mahal siya, di ba? So ayun, so when we say regression, no, regression is this is a parametric method, no. It is a parametric method, no. So it relies on the assumptions. First, no, the relationship should be roughly linear, no. Second, observation should be independent. Third, the variance of the residuals should be fairly constant, which we called it homozydicity. No, then the fourth one is the residual should be approximately normal when we want to make formal statistics nga inference. So finally, no, we should look for outliers, no, because a few extreme cases can strongly affect the fitted line. So here are the key assumptions. No, we have the key assumptions in our key assumptions, no, to check. No, first is the linear. We have our key assumptions are the linear relationship. We have the independence of errors. We have the homozydicity and the normally distributed errors. First is the linear relationship. So in linear regression, no, a straight line should be drawn through the data. So this straight line should represent, no, all points as good as possible. If the relation is non-linear, so this one, no, non-linear, the straight line cannot fulfill this requirement. Next is the independence of error. So in the difference, no, between the actual, no, and the predicted value should be independent to each other. So this means that the error of one, no, the error of one point doesn't affect into another. The next one is the homozydicity. No, so this is the third one, no, or we call this the equal variance of error, diba? So we plot the errors, no, in the y-axis, no, and the dependent variable on the x-axis. So the spread, no, the spread should roughly the same, no, across all the values of x. So this is the equal variance, diba? Tingnan nyo, equal variance. So in other words, diba, the variance of the error should remain constant. Diba? In this case, now the assumption is fulfilled. So, but what about this case? No, we observe, no, unequal variance of low values of x. The errors are small, while at the high values, diba, the variance of the errors becomes much larger. Diba? So it means that it is not the equal variance. The next one is the normally distributed error. Normally distributed errors, it should be normally distributed. No? So the the normality of error can be tested both analytically and graphically. Diba? So, however, we should be cautious with the analytical test, because for the smaller sample, for the small samples, they often indicate normality. And when larger samples, they quickly become non-significant na. Look, diba? So, usually, because of this limitation, graphical methods such as QQ plots are more commonly used today. So, let's go back to our to the data, to check our assumption is correct, Of course, this one I will delete lang para pakita ko yung paano natin maano yung assumption natin. Okay. Okay, we'll go back to the data, diba? Then, data analysis. Go to the regression. Click OK. We'll delete. So, we'll delete this one, delete this one, delete this one. So, our Y, this one, the house price. Just drag this one. Then, next, our X is the house size. Okay. Then don't forget to click the labels, the confidence level. For this one, we will put we will check the in order to do the diagnostic, we'll make sure to check this residual, if you want to figure out that if we have a line on your data set, and you can select also the standardized residual, and then i-check niyo po yung line fit plot, line fit plot, so that one could give you a scatter plot with a fed line to test the first assumption. And then, the normal probability, ang naiwan na lang. So, we'll check also the normal probability plots. So, please, we will not include the residual plots because it will mislead you to chart if you're going to check this one. Then, after, don't forget saan output natin ilalagay. So, I will put it here. So, and then click OK. So, this one, ito na this is the example. So, this one, okay, so our assumption, this is our assumption of the fitted, to check this one, if, ipalakhin ka lang ha. Okay. We were going to check if our assumption is correct. Now, for this one, this is the predicted house. Para makita natin, so we will just delete the orange, Then click, click this one. Then go right click, then add, click the add trend line, diba? Then we can go to linear. This one, click the linear and okay. Ayun. So, our assumption is Y. Y-axis, y-axis, and our X, our X and Y-axis have linear, relation. So that, the chart we're gonna use, this is called the line fit plot, So, we have, this one. So, to check, diba, if the points, to check for a linear relationship, if the points from clear straight line pattern, di ba nakita nyo, straight line pattern, a linear relationship exists. If not, ano siya, is like non-linear siya, So in our data, we observe a clear linear relationship for this. Okay, so when when reading the regression output, focus first on the slope, because it tells you the direction and the size of the relationship. Next, we look for the at the intercept, but only interpret if it if an x value of 0 is meaningful in content. So the r squared value tells us how much the variation in y is explained by x. Then the p value for the slope, it helps us decide whether the observed relationship is likely to be more than the random noise. Finally, the residual errors helps you just help you to judge the typical prediction error of the of the um, of the line. So, simple linear regression, so it is di ba? So it is good practice that you need to predict within the range of observed x values and report the equation and the content clearly, and we need to explain uncertainty. Prediction or estimate, it is not guaranteed. So check residuals before trusting the model. So what we're going to avoid, di ba? So avoid extrapolating far outside the data of your range, assuming regression proves causation, then ignoring outliers or assumption is violation, or using a weak model as if it is exact. So this in other words, 'di ba, simple linear regression is useful, di ba, for prediction, but careful, limit matters, di ba? The safest prediction are made within the observed range of x values, because the fitted line is supported by the actual data there. So predicting far beyond the data range is called the extrapolation, di ba? And it can be misleading. So we all must have to avoid treating the regression as proof of causation. Regression can describe and predict relationship, but causal claims requires stronger design and evidence. So to summarize, simple linear regression is one of the most useful introductory tools in statistics, because it turns a pattern in data into an interpretable equation. The slope tells us the expected change in the outcome. The residual, it reminds us that every model has an error. So before we're going to interpret the line, we should check whether the assumptions are reasonable. Finally, regression, it helps us to understand and predict relationship, but it does not automatically establish the cause and effect. So these are my references. Thank you.
Our fourth presenter will be discussing multiple linear regression. Please welcome Ms. Lailani R. Pingol. Ms. Pingol is a former chief nurse of Romel Cruz Hospital, where she serves for 7 years, and she is currently a clinical instructor at Bulacan State University, a role she had held for the past 3 years. She earned both her Bachelor of Science in Nursing and Master of Arts in Nursing from La Consolacion University, Philippines, formerly known as the University of Regina Carmeli. Let us now give our full attention to Ms. Pingol as she presents multiple linear regression.
Thank you very much, Dr. Besede, for that kind introduction. And of course, magandang araw po sa ating lahat, especially to Dr. Ledino. So I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to present to all of you our study, which is the multiple linear regression. Okay, let me show you the objective of this study. The objective here is to understand what multiple linear regression is, and of course to learn how it works in simple terms, to see how it can be applied in real life situation. And of course, in our introduction, multiple linear regression is used to estimate the relationship between two or more independent variables and one independent variable. You can use multiple linear regression when you want to know, for example, in number one, how strong the relationship is between two or more independent variables and one dependent variables. For example po, is how rainfall, temperature, and amount of fertilizer added affect crop growth. And in number two, the value of the dependent variable at certain value of the independent variables. So for example of this one is the expected yield of crop at certain levels of rainfall, temperature, and fertilizer addition. Of course, to understand what is multilinear regression is, it is also a method to use to study how multiple factor affects one outcome. It helps in predictions and, of course, in the decision making. In simple terms, it helps answer questions like how do several factors together affect one result? So we have here the assumptions. We have the independence, normality, homoscedasticity, linearity. So at first, in the independence, the scores of any particular subject are independent of the scores of all other subjects. While on the normality, in the population, the scores on the dependent variable are normally distributed for each of the possible combination of the level of the X variables. Each of the variable is normally distributed. On the other hand, the homoscedasticity in the population, the variances of the dependent variable for each of the possible combination of the levels of the X variables are equal. And the linearity in the population, the relation between the dependent variable and the independent variable is linear when all the other independent variables are held constant. Sa basic formula po, ito po yung makikita at gagamitin po natin in multiple linear regression. So the y is equals to beta O plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 2 x2 plus beta 3 x3 and so on and so forth plus beta n xn, which is the end, and of course plus epsilon. So where the y, the predicted value of the dependent variable, where beta O is the y-intercept, wherein the value of y when all other parameters are set to O. On the other hand, the beta 1 and x1, the regression coefficient of the first independent variable, also known as the effect that increasing the value of the independent variable has on the predicted y value. On the other hand, the three dots that show here do the same for however many independent variables you are testing. On the other hand, beta n and xn, the regression coefficient of the last independent variable, while the epsilon is equals to the model error, also known how much variation there is in our estimate of y. And as an academician, also, imaginein po natin na need natin i-predict yung students' final grades based on the study hours, attendance, participations. So possible po, yung multilinear regressions po dito, madedetermine natin kung how much each factor contributes. And of course, which factors has the strongest effect. Kaya po, masasabi natin useful ang ating MLR because it shows how multiple factors work together. Helps in decision-making and forecasting, identifies which factors are most important, and used in business, healthcare, educations, and more. For example, dahil nga po nurse po ako, ito po yung isa sa tingin ko po is best example po sa atin. Sorry po. So, as a chief nurse living without proper notice. So, ito po yung isa sa pinakamalaking problema po ng isang hospital na na-encounter ko po today or previous days. Okay, so problem situation here, a hospital experiences a sudden disruption because a chief nurse leaves without proper notice. So my goal here is to understand how different factors affect hospital performance after the incident. So this one is just an example. So we have the days, the staff workload, patients per nurse, the staff morale, the replacement staff available, the response times, and of course, the hospital performance. Wherein, dito po, yung Y is present ko po yung hospital performance. For example, patient satisfaction, efficiency, or error rates. While on the other hand, the independent variables, this could be the staff workload, staff morale, available of replacement staff, and the management response time. So here is the example of multilinear regression from the Excel po. So nag-try po ako, nag-compute, somehow nag-compute din po, inaral ko po, at ito po yung kinalabasan ng multilinear regression po. Based po dun sa independent and dependent variables po na nakuha natin. So with that po, ang ating variable from the workload, makikita po natin na we have the coefficient na negative 1.8, while the T statistics is negative 4.5. The P value is 0.002, while the interpretations of this is significant negative effect. On the other hand, in the staff morale naman, yung coefficients po natin, we have the positive 2.5, and then the T statistics is 5.8. P value po natin is 0.001, and the strong positive effect po yung interpretation. Yung replacement staff po natin, dun sa coefficient, nag-positive 1.2 po siya. On the other hand, the T statistics is 2.1, and then the P value is 0.045, and with the moderate effect ng interpretation. The response time from that scenario, we got 0. Or negative 0.9. The T statistics is negative 3.2, and the P value is 0.010, which the interpretation shows the significant negative effect. So, how is it possible po, no? So, to explain it more simply, the T statistics show how strong the effect is, and bigger absolute value is equals to stronger evidence. On the other hand, the P value naman po, if P is less than 0.05, the factor is important. While on the other hand, if P value is greater than 0.05, it may not matter. So after the chief nurse po, no, umalis sa ospital. So the staff morale po, the P value is equals to 0.001. So it shows bigger or biggest impact must be prioritized. On the other hand, in the workload po naman, yung P value is equals to 0.002, is strong negative effect. So nagkakaroon po ng staff overload. Sa response time naman po, dahil nga po yung referral system medyo na-delayed na or super delayed nga po. So yung P-value po niya is 0.010, which delays worsen the situation. And the displacement of staff is equals to the P-value of 0.045 that helps but less impactful than morale. On the other hand po, may nakita rin po akong website or site, no, ng kung papaano po i-calculate ang ating multiple linear regression. So, here po, galing po siya sa www.statscalculator.com. So, nung in-upload ko po sa kanila ang table ng sample value, ito po yung kinalabasan. Wherein in the model summary, the R squared, adjusted R squared, F statistics, P value, and of course the significant. So wherein the R squared is 0.994 or 9974, adjusted R squared is 0.9952, and the F statistics is 470.8127. The P value is 0 and the significant is okay. While on the other hand, we have the coefficient. So dito po sa coefficient, mostly, the constant estimate is 0. We have the standard error, which is 0.0218. the t-value is 0 and the p-value is 1. So the significance of this is negative. So we also have the result of coefficients in the response time hours, replacement staff morale 1 to 10, and then the workload parameters or workload patient nurse. On the other hand, the model diagnostic shows also the standard error. So we have the AIC and the BIC. Sa standard error, we got 0.069, wherein the AIC is negative 22.0145 and the BIC is negative 20.5016. So note, AIC and BIC values may differ from R's output due to different calculations methods. The relative values for model comparison remain valid. In multicollinearity analysis, sorry about that. So we have also the variable, the BIF, and the interpretations. So here, as you can see, the variable is the response time hours, replacement staff, and staff morale 1 to 10, and the workload patient nurse. So in here, as you can see, the VIF from the response times are is 74.61. That has an interpretations of high multicollinearity. And on the other hand, we have the replacement staff, which is 39.91, which is high multicollinearity. Sorry about that. And of course, the staff morale, which is 63.21, which is high multicollinearity. And workload patients nurse, which is 194.37, which is high multicollinearity. Yan. Okay. And here we have the residual versus fitted value. So ito po yung makikita natin wherein there is a scattered plot dito. Okay, so we have here the marginal lines, which is the y is equal to 0. And we have the scattered plot here that show the residual and the fitted values. On the other hand naman, we have the QQ plot normal distributions, wherein the lines here, which is the normal distribution, and the dot is equivalent to the data. So this is the sample quartiles versus theoretical quantiles. On the other hand, there is also a combined diagnostic plots wherein it shows the residual versus fitted values, and then normal QQ plot, and Cox distance plot, and of course the histogram of residuals values. So sa statistic interpretations po ng www.istats calculators, it shows a multiple linear regression was conducted to predict hospital performance using 4 predictors. The overall regressions model was statistically significant, wherein the F 4 to 5 is equals to 470.81, p-value is equals to 0.05, and the R squared is equals to 0.997, indicating that approximately 99.7% of the variance hospital performance can be explained by the independent variable. And of course, practical conclusion, the model successfully explains a significant proportion of variance in hospital performance. Individual coefficient p-values indicate which specific predictors are significant contributors to the model. And with that po, ang nakita po ng website na ito, na which is the stat calculator nga po, is a multiple linear regression was conducted to examine the relationship between hospital performance and 4 predictor variables. The sample consisted of 10 objections or observations, which is days po yung nilagay ko dyan, and numeric variables were standardized prior to analysis. Outliers were removed using the IQR method. So the overall regression model was statistically significant, wherein the F 4 and 5 is equals to 470.81. The p-value is equals to 0.000, and the R squared is 0.997. Adjusted R squared is equals to 0.995. The model explained 99.7% of the variance in hospital performance. No individual predictors were statistically significant at the alpha is equals to 0.05 level. So multicollinearity diagnostics indicated potential issues with response time hours, replacement staff morale, workload patients or workload patient nurse, which is having the VIF is greater than 10. So conclusions for this, multiple factors affect hospital performance and leadership. Loss creates multiple problems. And of course, multiple linear regression helps identify the most critical issues. And of course, in the hospital, should improve backup leadership, staff supporting, and emergency response system. Para po makapag-solve din po tayo ng multilinear regression kasi actually mahirap po talaga. Kasi po sinubukan ko ring makinig sa YouTube na nakita ko po na masyadong mahaba po yung proseso para gawin ko po ito sa inyo. So, meron din pong proper tools na makakabigay sa atin ng kaginhawahan to solve multiple linear regression. So, ano-ano nga po ba ito? So, we have the SPSS and of course the R, and the Python, and then the Microsoft Excel, the Google Sheet, and other statistical software po na meron tayong Stata, SAS, Minitab, and MATLAB. So, ito po yung mga tools na sa tingin ko po makakatulong sa atin para maging mahusay pa tayo na statistician. Ayan. So, I guess that's all po. Ito po ang aking references. And maraming salamat po sa inyo po lahat.
Our fifth presenter will be discussing the Friedman test. Please welcome Ms. T. Dana. Ms. Dana is an assistant professor at the University of Southern Mindanao, where she also serves as a clinical instructor and department research coordinator. She previously held leadership roles as chief nurse in hospital settings and earned her master's degree in nursing from Davao Doctors College. She is currently pursuing her Doctor of Philosophy in Nursing in Administration at Our Lady of Fatima University, and let us now proceed with Ms. Dana's presentation on the Friedman test.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Doc. Good afternoon, classmates. I am T. Dana. For today, I will be presenting the Friedman test. So the Friedman test is a non-parametric statistical tool or test used to compare three or more related groups. So specifically, it tests whether there are differences between three or more related groups, meaning to say the same subject under different conditions. What makes this Friedman special? So when to use the Friedman test? We will use the Friedman test to compare three or more related groups. So we will use it or works without normality, and we will use rank data in testing the Friedman. So in comparison table, we will see that the Friedman test, we will use the Friedman test if our groups or the groups are three or more and is related, meaning to say tested to the same people, same students, or same patients. So it is non-parametric, meaning to say it is skewed, ranked, example ratings, or not perfect. So this is the formula of the Friedman. So chi-square sub f or fr, Friedman, is equal to 12 divided by, the 12 here is constant, divided by nk, multiply it by k plus 1, summation, multiply it to the summation of rj squared, minus 3n, the 3 here is another constant, multiply it to k plus 1, where n is the number of blocks, meaning the row, and the k is the number of treatments or the column, and this rj is the number of ranks of treatment, and the degrees of freedom is k minus 1, or the treatment or the columns minus 1. So for example, Stress under different environments in 5% level of significance. Compare stress levels of 5 participants, meaning 5 students, under 3 conditions: the quiet, music, and noise. So we have here the scale 1 to 5, where 1 is the low stress and the 5 is the high stress. So participant 1 rank the quiet as third, music as two, and the noise as five. Second, participant rank as the quiet as second, then music third, and the fourth is the noise. And number three, participants of quiet environment as five, music has is three, and the noise is four. Participant number four, one ang quiet, two the music, three the noise, and so on. Five for the participant 5, second, quiet, third with music, and fourth is the noise. So first step in Friedman test, we have to rank within each participant or row, meaning to say based on the answers of our respondents or our participants, we have to rank it first, second, and third. So one is the lowest and the third is the highest, meaning to say in the participant 1, wherein he or she answered 3 to 5, meaning to say the first one is the music, second is a quiet environment, and the third one is the noise or the high stress. The second participant, 2, 3, and 4, so we will rank the lowest as first, second, and third to the highest. So 1, 2, 3. And the third one, 5, 3, 4, meaning to say third, 5, 1, 3, and second, 4. For the fourth is 1, 2, 3, meaning to say we have to rank it also as 1, 2, 3. For the five or fifth participants, 2, 3, 4, meaning to say first, second, or third, or 1, 2, 3. So that is how to rank each participant or a row. Next is to sum the ranks for each condition, meaning to say the environment or the column wise. So we have to rank it our quiet, our music, and our noise, meaning to say we have to add this one, the sum. So 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 1 is 8. 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 is 8. And 3 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 is 14. So after we have solved or got the sum ranks, so we have to use the Friedman formula. So the Friedman formula, we have to um, check for our formula and then get the numerical value. So 12 over 5, meaning N is the number of blocks or rows, meaning the participants. Multiply it by K. The K is the number of treatments, the quiet, the music, and the noise. Multiply by 4, since K plus 1 is 4. Then multiply that to the summation of R squared. So meaning to say 8 squared plus 8 squared plus 14 squared will be 324 minus 3. Multiply it by N. The N is the number of rows, meaning to say the participants. Then multiply it with the number of treatment plus 1. So 3 columns. So plus 1, 4. So our computed FR or our chi-square sub F is 64.8 minus 60, that is 4.8. This is our computed value or the p-value. So step 4, we have to compare that value with our critical value or to solve our critical value. So based on our formula, the degrees of freedom is k minus 1. So our treatment has 3 columns. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and our alpha or our level of significance ay 5%, so it's 0.05. So FR calculated natin kanina, it's 4.8, and our FR or Friedman critical, that is 0.5 and the 2. So the value here is 5.991. So to compare, if FR calculated or the p-value is greater than our critical value,
we have to reject our HO. So there is significant difference between the groups. But if our FR or the p-value or the computed Friedman value is higher, lesser than or equal to our critical value, we will accept the HO or our null hypothesis, meaning there is no significant difference between the group. So from our calculated and our F critical 5.991, so here analysis and interpretation, chi-square sub f or fr computed 4.8 is less than our fr or Friedman critical 5.991, the decision is to accept the null hypothesis. So the interpretation, there is no significant difference between groups. Their stress levels under quiet, music, and noise environments, or there is no sufficient evidence to conclude that stress levels differ significantly between the quiet, the music, the noise environments for these participants. So any observed differences in stress ratings are likely due to random chance rather than the true effect of the environment. So now, if for example, our table has ties or ties in Friedman test will change the calculation slightly. For example, there will be ties on the rankings or ranks. So example, this table stress under different environment again, but with 4 participants, quiet, music, and noise. We have here, for example, ranks na po ito siya. We will convert or we will have the average. For example, for quiet and music, as rank 1 and as rank 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3 divided by 2. That will give us 1.5, 1.5. Then this is 3. So for the second participant, 1, 3, 2, since there is no tie. And the third one, 1, 2.5, 2.5, because the music 2 and the noise is 3. So 2 plus 5, that is, 2 plus 3 is 5 divided by 2. That will give us 2.5. And the fourth one, 2, 1, and 3. So no ties. So HO, there is no difference in stress levels across quiet, music, and noise environments. So step 2, sum of ranks, the same with earlier computation, sum of ranks of RJ. So we have to add all of this, then squared, add all of this and squared, and add all of this and squared. So for the step 3, we have to compute for, we have to compute for the Friedman test without tie correction. So it's for the tie correction, it's an optional. So most of the textbook and research paper, ties are often ignored, but for the sake of presentation and new knowledge, so we have to present the correction or how to treat the data with tie data. So step 4, in tie correction factor or C, and step 5, apply tie correction. Like for example, you have identified the ties per participant. Like for example, we have ties here, the participant 1 and participant 3. So 1.5, 1.5, and 3. So the tie is 2. 2 data or 2 inputs have tie scores. So t cube minus the t, so that is 12 cube, meaning to say 8 minus 2 is equal to 6. And the participant 2, 1, 3, 2, there is no tie, so 0. Participant 3, the same, 1 and 2 data here are tied. So t cube minus t, which means to say that the two ties, 8 2 cube minus 2 is equal to 6. And participant 4 showed 213, there is no tie. So our score here is 0. So we will sum up all of the value here. So sum of tie values, a summation of t cubed minus t, so equal to 6 plus 0 plus 6 plus 0, that is 12. So our computed for C, or the correction factor, C is equal to 1 minus summation of t cubed minus t, which is the 12, divided by the n, multiply it by k cubed minus k. So where n is the 4 participants and the k is the 3 conditions. So C is equal to 1 minus 12 divided by 4, multiply it by 3 cubed minus 3 is equal to 1 minus 12 over 4 times 24. So that is 1 minus 12 over 96, or 1 minus 0.125. It will give us the C of 0.875. So in step 5, apply tie correction. We have chi-square corrected is equivalent to chi-square Friedman over the correction factor. So this is the value for Friedman test, or yung value na walang correction over the computed C, or the correction factor. So it will give us 3.57. This will be our chi-square corrected. So ito po yung nadagdag doon sa previous natin na solving. So the decision and analysis, so degree of freedom, the same, k minus 1, that is 2, and the critical value at 0.05, again 2 and 0.05, using the chi-square table, 5.991. Since our chi-square corrected is 3.57, so from 3.1 kanina, naging 3.57, is less than 5.991, the decision will be to accept our null hypothesis. Since our FR, or the p-value, is less than our critical value, 5.991, there is no significant difference between the groups. So the conclusion, since the chi-square corrected is 3.57 less than 5.991 as critical value at 5% level of significance, thus the null hypothesis is accepted. Therefore, there is no significant difference in stress levels among 3 environments, whether it's under music, quiet, or noise of the 4 participants. So that's the difference. So we have also common post hoc test after the Friedman if we would like to test which among those conditions, if ever, there is a significant difference. However, our conclusion is has no significant difference between the groups. So in post hoc test after Friedman's, we have the many test and Dunn's test. It will be tackled soon from our next presenters, or next week's discussion. So thank you very much for listening. I hope that I have delivered, and I hope I have imparted something for you. Thank you very much po.
To conclude today's session, we will have our session synthesizer, who will summarize the key insights and statistical concept discussed by our presenters. Please welcome Dr. Danhill C. Donoga. Dr. Donoga is a licensed professional teacher and registered nurse, currently serving as an associate professor at the University of Eastern Philippines and the program chair of the Master of Arts in Nursing program. He holds doctoral degree in educational management and the master's degree in nursing, and is currently pursuing a PhD in nursing. Let us look forward to his synthesis of today's advanced statistics session.
Good day, everyone. I am Daniel Donoga, and I will be giving a brief synthesis of 5 statistical tools commonly used in nursing and health research. The tools covered Wilcoxon test, Mann-Whitney U test, Friedman test, simple linear regression, and multiple linear regression. It is believed that having a deeper grasp of this concept would equip our researchers choose the right statistical tool for their research. Since each tool had been already discussed comprehensively by my groupmates or my colleagues in the profession who were the assigned presenters, my role is to help us see the big picture. And it is enumerated in the goal of this session, such as to know when to use each tool, what question it answers, and how to report it in a dissertation or manuscript. In research, choosing the correct statistical tool is not just a technical decision. Of course, it is part of the scientific rigor. A good analysis must match the research question, the study design, the type of data, and the assumptions that we can reasonably defend. So in the next few minutes, I will be summarizing these tools in a practical, easy, and effective way. This slide is really the heart of the discussion. The five best tools can actually be grouped into two families. The first family includes the rank-based or non-parametric test, which includes the Wilcoxon, Mann-Whitney-U, and the Friedman. These are often used when the data are ordinal, skewed, non-normal, or when sample sizes are small. The second family includes the regression tools, which includes simple linear regression and multiple linear regression. These are used when we want to predict or explain a continuous outcome using one or more predictors. So rather than memorizing five separate tools, it is important to see them as part of a decision-making framework. So let us begin with the most important question. How do we decide which test to use? This slide is the quickest way to choose the right tool. We always start with a research question, not with the software. That is a common mistake among beginning researchers. Many students open SPSS first and then look for a test. But the correct process is the reverse. Start with a question, then the design, then the data, and only then the analysis. If the question is, did the same participants change from pre-test to post-test? Then the appropriate tool is the Wilcoxon sign rank test, especially if the outcome is ordinal or not normally distributed. If the question is, are two independent groups different? For example, intervention versus control, male versus female, exposed versus unexposed, then the correct test is the Mann-Whitney-U test. Again, when the outcome is ordinal or skewed. If the question is, did the same participants differ across three or more related measurements or time points? Then we are to use the Friedman test. This is the non-parametric counterpart for repeated measures across several occasions. However, if the question becomes, does one predictor explain variation in a continuous outcome, then we move to simple linear regression. And if the question becomes, do several predictors jointly explain or predict a continuous outcome, then we use multiple linear regression. Notice that the presentation organizes the tools according to the kind of question being asked. The first three tools, Wilcoxon, Mann-Whitney-U, and Friedman, are mainly used for comparison. They help us determine whether there are meaningful differences between measurements or groups. The last two tools, namely simple regression and multiple regression, are used for prediction. They help us determine whether one or more variables explain a continuous outcome. So the key logic is this. First, ask whether you are comparing groups or predicting outcomes. Then, determine whether observations are related or independent. Now, let us summarize the three rank-based tests together. These three tests belong to the same family because they work with ranks rather than relying heavily on row scores. That is why they are very useful in health-related studies where outcomes are often measured using Likert scales, symptom severity scores, pain scores, anxiety levels, fatigue levels, or adherence scores. These variables may not satisfy the assumption of parametric test. First, the Wilcoxon sign rank test. This is used for two related measurements. A classic nursing example is comparing patients' pain scores before and after an intervention, or comparing fatigue scores of the same nurses at baseline and after a wellness program. It asks whether the median difference between two paired measurements is zero. Second, the Mann-Whitney U test. This is used for two independent groups. For example, if we compare quality of life scores between an independent or intervention group and a control group, and the outcome is ordinal or non-normal, this test is appropriate. It examines whether one group tends to have higher or lower ranks than the other. Third is the Friedman test. It is used for three or more related measurements. For example, if we measure stress scores of the same nurses before training, immediately after training, and 1 month later, Friedman is the appropriate test. If the result is significant, we do not stop there. We follow it with post hoc pairwise comparisons, usually with correction for multiple testing. The shared principle among these three tests is that they are more robust when normality is questionable. However, that does not mean they are automatically better. They are better only when the data structure and assumptions justify them. After discussing group differences, we now move on to a different kind of question, prediction. Please note that in this slide, it marks an important shift in thinking. The earlier test asks, are scores different? Regression asks, how does the outcome change as the predictor changes? In simple linear regression, we have one predictor, which we call x, and one continuous outcome, which we call y. For example, we may ask, does baseline depression score predict fatigue score? Or does age predict HbA1c? Or does sleep duration predict stress level? The main result is the slope, often represented by beta or b, and this tells us the expected change in the outcome for every 1 unit increase in the predictor. For example, if the slope is 0.8, then for every 1 point increase in the baseline depression score, fatigue score is expected to increase by 0.8 points on average. In nursing and health sciences, this is very useful because it allows us to go beyond difference testing. We are no longer simply asking whether groups differ. We are asking whether a variable has a meaningful relationship with an outcome. However, regression requires assumption checking. We should assess for linearity, constant variance, independence, and residual normality. Graduate students should not report regression results without showing that these assumptions were considered. If one predictor is useful, then naturally the next question is, what if the outcome is influenced by several factors at the same time? This is often the most powerful and most useful of the 5 tools in a graduate level research. The multiple linear regression. This is used when a continuous outcome is influenced by several predictors simultaneously. In real nursing research, for example, outcomes are rarely shaped by one variable alone. For instance, fatigue may be influenced by age, intervention status, comorbidities, sleep quality, and social support. Also, for job satisfaction, It may be influenced by leadership style, workload, burnout, age, and years of service. What multiple regression gives us is the unique contribution of each predictor while holding the others constant. That phrase is very important in research reporting, holding the other variables constant. This helps us address confounding. For example, if an intervention group appears to have lower fatigue, we want to know whether that effect remains even after adjusting for age and baseline fatigue. If it does, then the effect is more credible. The interpretation becomes more clinically meaningful. For example, after adjusting for age and baseline fatigue, the intervention group scored 3.2 points, lower on fatigue at follow-up. That is much stronger than merely saying there was a significant difference. But this method also requires caution. We need to watch for multicollinearity, where predictors overlap too much. Also, we have to watch for influential outliers, which can distort estimates, and overfitting, especially when sample size is too small relative to the number of predictors. So multiple regression is powerful, but also demands discipline. Once we have chosen the right tool, the next question is, how do we report the result properly? This section is especially useful for writing dissertation or journal manuscript. For non-parametric tests, you should first explain why you used a rank-based method. Do not just say Wilcoxon test was used. State the reason. For example, the data were ordinal, not normally distributed, or involved repeated measures of the same participants. Next, report medians and interquartile ranges, not just means and standard deviations, because these tests are centered on ranks and medians, are often more appropriate summaries. Then, provide the test statistic and p-value. If you use the Friedman test and found significance, also report the post-hoc comparison and the correction method used, such as the Ben-Ferroni adjustment. Moreover, for regression, be clear about the outcome and the predictors. Then report the beta coefficients, 95% confidence interval, p-value, and r-squared. R-squared tells us how much variance in the outcome is explained by the model. Most importantly, describe the assumption checks and any remedies, and interpret the findings in clinically meaningful language. For example, do not stop at saying the coefficient is significant. Explain what the coefficient means in terms of patient care, symptoms, recovery, or quality of life. So good reporting is not merely statistical, it is interpretive, transparent, and clinically grounded. To end, let me leave you with a very simple summary of all 5 tools. This section will give you the one-line memory guide for all 5 tools. Wilcoxon is for 2 related measurements. Mann-Whitney U-test is for 2 independent groups. Friedman is for 3 or more related measurements. These 3 are used for comparison. Simple regression is for one predictor for a continuous outcome, and multiple regression is used for several predictors for a continuous outcome. These 2 are for predictions. The most important message is that we do not choose a statistical tool or test just because it is available in a software menu. We choose it based on the research question, the design, the type of variables, and the assumptions, ensuring alignment and appropriateness. In closing, A good analysis is the one that best matches the research question, the data structure, and the assumptions we can defend. This is the kind of analysis expected at the PhD level research. Technically sound, logically justified, and clinically meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your time and attention in listening to our presentation. We truly hope that the discussion today enhanced your understanding of these statistical methods. And this ends our presentation.